Hi guys, full moon in Aries on October 20th has the potential to be quite bright, energetic, and possibly a bit dramatic. I'm here to break it down and tell you what it means for your sign. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer. I do readings. I work in whole sign system if you're ever curious. There are links down below for my Instagram page if you wanted to check it out, for my bookings link. Any questions, please ask, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. I try to put out videos every week. So this full moon is happening in 27 degrees Aries. Full moons are always sun opposite moon, a moment of culmination, completion, change. And it's happening at 10:56 a.m. Eastern at 27 degrees Aries, as I mentioned. So we are completing a cycle that started in late March this year, and there might be a sense of getting rewards, realizing that you've had enough, and changing things in your life. A lot of different possibilities based on your rising sign. So the moon is opposite Mars and it's squaring Pluto. So opposition is separating, same as square. So it's kind of an aspect that is getting weaker and not stronger, which is supportive and helpful. But there is still a potential for an energy release and possible some kind of climactic event, something triggering you, triggering your emotions. Feels very healing, feels like this is about initiating action. If I had to come up with like a short blurb for this full moon, I think it's like taking action to transform the negative sides of your personality, to transform your lack of collaboration, cooperation, and to find a way to pursue your goals and attack your goals in a new way. So it is also called Hunter's Moon, and traditionally in the Northern Hemisphere, this full moon would be the time when people go hunting to save for the cold winter. And where in your life can you hunt for betterment, improvement? How can you be, it's full moon in Aries and it's a hunter's full moon. So how appropriate, like how can you be more brave, more courageous, more active in your life and actively bring positive change? Maybe you can sign up for therapy. Maybe you can buy new pillows in your apartment. When was the last time you bought yourself new pillows? And they are very important. We sleep 1/3 of our life. So initiate change that can better your life. Think about ways in which you can go off and do something for yourself, but that will ultimately better the world around you, because the full moon is always sun-moon opposition, and sun presently in the diplomatic sign of Libra is asking you to cooperate and harmonize, and moon in Aries is very much, but how can I also save my individuality? So you will be very much focused this full moon on bringing balance to both your psyche, your relationships, balancing your needs with the needs of others. Avoid being reckless, especially because of that Plutonian energy. Avoid knee-jerk reactions. Don't intimidate people or don't feel intimidated. Know that you might be extra anxious, extra tense around this time. So instead of getting into fights, do your best to, maintain the peace and try to pursue your goals. Maybe like you can come up with a plan and not get engaged with people and then wait while the energy subsides to then kind of reach out to those who can help you. So if you are an Aries rising, this is a big one. It's a full moon in your first house. So first house is our physical body, it's our identity, it's our health and well-being. So you may find yourself completing a personal project, something that required a lot of physical work. Look back at the end of March this year and see what were you working back then. Were you getting on a diet? Were you planning an outfit for your wedding? Like, was there any kind of personal thing? Have you started exercising? Maybe right now you can complete that and kind of feel like, okay, this, I'm satisfied with my progress. Definitely a great time for you to focus on yourself, even though I've been talking about balancing self and others. But like, think about your self-care, your mental health, your physical well-being. Like, what can you do to improve it? You know, how can you maybe upgrade your image, maybe bring more dresses into your wardrobe, find out how you can use the fall season and still dress really nicely, or maybe you can cut off a bad habit. Maybe you can, another example would be like if you have invested into a course that deals with some kind of like self-betterment and now you might be completing that. Or you started working on a website and now you might be ready to unroll that website. If you are a Taurus rising, the full moon is happening in your 12th house, so it's a lot more private for you. You may feel more than other signs. You may feel a little bit restless and emotionally overwhelmed, perhaps about things that are out of your control, perhaps about something from the past. Maybe you're thinking about a past relationship. Maybe you're thinking about past mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's good to face the memories. It's good to face the traumas, but best probably done with a specialist, you know, or maybe you can journal, you can meditate, definitely lean into spending some time on your own. Trust your intuition, listen to the dreams that might come up. Any kind of past memory can be an indicator of something you really need to let go, because 12th house ultimately is a place of self-undoing. So are you getting stressed? Like maybe something is happening at work, maybe you're not getting recognized and it's triggering a pattern where you're looking back and you're remembering how your father didn't tell you you did a great job. And are you projecting, right? Like look back and think, is this situation really who I am, you know, or is this just the circumstance and I can work on it and I can better myself and I can better the situation. So don't allow the past, don't allow your mistakes to get you off track. Could be a great time where, like, if you are a spiritual individual, if you have a spiritual business, maybe you see a result of that, you know, of that business, you see the progress. Could be wonderful for starting a spiritual practice, starting therapy, kind of tapping into your subconscious. Even writing, you know, even like if you're stressed about something, maybe you should just like write it out and express all of your feelings on the page and then burn it and you feel better about it. If you are a Gemini rising, this full moon is happening in your 11th house. So 11th house full moons deal with friendships and your networks, as well as your hopes and dreams and your social media page. But it's your place in the world at large, and that world at large could be your friendships, or it could be social media, like I mentioned, you know, like who do you surround yourself with? So you're definitely, maybe you felt frustrated, maybe you felt unsure who your true friends are, right? Like if you've been going through a tough time and some people forgot to text you and ask you how you're doing, that's a sign. Maybe you don't want to associate with these people. So you're looking carefully at your friendships, you're looking carefully at people in your network and judging, I think, either this relationship is worth keeping and you really need to just work a little bit harder on it, or you need to express your feelings, right? You're a Gemini rising, you're a great communicator. Or maybe you just need to let some people go, and there is nothing wrong with that. Your connections need to be inspiring and supportive, and you don't want to deal with people who aren't supporting you. There might be changes in your long-term projects, like if you've been working on something for a while in collaboration with a friend or a partner, you may see a change to that. Social media projects, even like building websites, could come to completion. If you work for a charity or volunteer ever, there might be a change of status. Maybe you get offered a job and now you start to work for a nonprofit. There's definitely possibilities connected to bettering the world at large. If you are a Cancer rising, this full moon is happening in your 10th house. So have you been devoting yourself a lot to your professional life in the last 6 months? If you have, you may definitely see changes and some kind of culmination in the realm of career. And it could play out a few ways, right? As always, like there is a possibility that you get promoted, recognized, complete a serious project, close some kind of professional chapter, and feel kind of, you know, empowered. Watch out for conflicts, as always. There's a bit of a tension possibly, fighting with family members about how much work you're doing, because maybe you've been just like unloading your feelings and your frustrations on your family members. That is also applicable to Capricorn risings this month. Maybe you're just realizing that the job that you're doing, the career that you have, is not satisfying, and there's something like, maybe you've been thinking about other people's needs and other people's desires too much, and now is the time to ask yourself, are you happy with this job? If you're not, maybe you're going to change something, and the full moon is the opening of that opportunity to change, bring kind of like new influence. There will be even more of that for you next year when Jupiter goes into Aries. So a lot of professional growth coming up for you, dear Cancer risings. If you are a Leo rising, this full moon is happening in your 9th house. And 9th house deals with expansion of our world, expansion of our beliefs, and our literal travel sometimes, because you expand your world by going out of your comfort zone and traveling, and education, of course, because that's another way of like stay at home, read a book, and your mind can be transported to a place that the book describes. So with the full moon in the 9th house, you may be completing an education chapter in your life. Maybe you're graduating. Maybe you are, I don't know, is anyone graduating in October? Maybe you are, who knows? Or you're just completing a class, maybe there have been some exams that you need to pass. There might be changes in your living situation, quite literally, because 9th house deals with travel, and it's not as personal or like as immediate environment as the 3rd house is, but there still might be, maybe you're going to a foreign country, maybe you're moving to a new apartment, maybe you're completing a travel plan, maybe you're planning to go and live somewhere else. There might also be, it's squaring Pluto in the 6th house, so there might be some challenges to your routines or challenges to your health. Something internally that has been bugging you, whether that be your physical body or just like overall frustration and like level of stress, and maybe that results to you changing your attitude towards the world. We're constantly, these changes, the inner changes, 9th house stuff or 12th house stuff, they're not visible. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. We might not be aware of that, but this full moon, look at yourself at the end of March this year. Were you believing that a relationship with a person that's toxic for you may work out? Did you believe that you can stay at this job for a while and it will get better, and maybe it's not? How can you rearrange your views, or how can your views represent your reality and what has changed in them? Like maybe it's not about making a toxic relationship work. Maybe in the last 6 months you have learned that you're worthy of a healthy relationship. You're worthy of a job that's not leaving you stressed out. If you are a Virgo rising, the full moon is happening in your 8th house, and 8th house deals with other people's resources, all kind of collaborative efforts, finances that you share, debts, taxes. And as a Virgo rising, you're very organized, right? At least like outwardly, you have that image of like keeping everything together. Things need to be in the places you want them to be. Virgo sun, Venus and Mars here, I know it's like you're kind of, sometimes maybe you're not very flexible, right? And there might be something happening with your finances or projects you're working on with other people, or maybe you find out that there is some kind of, if you're in a partnership, maybe your partner spent some money that you were saving for something else. So there might be a change in finances, and it might come from some kind of crisis. So maybe, like you find out about something that's been going on, and then that frustrates you. Watch out for fighting, watch out for manipulation, or guilt tripping anyone. Try to figure out what actually happened. If a sudden debt comes up that you forgot about, pay that off, or come up with a plan to pay it off. There might be very much like healing potential with this full moon, because it's affecting your 8th house, and maybe there's like a therapy breakthrough, or you discover something about yourself, something about your past that is actually very freeing. And another possibility too, if you've been dealing with another person, or if you've been waiting for someone to pay you, right? Like if you have a client and they've been postponing payment, or if you've been waiting on inheritance or some kind of insurance payment, you can actually get it right around this time. If you are a Libra rising, this full moon is happening in your 7th house. So for Libra risings, there's been a lot of focus on being more honest, being more authentic, being more expressive of what you need, right? Like 3 planets, Mercury, Sun, Mars being in your 1st house. You've been rethinking who you are, maybe speaking your truth a lot more. Beautiful energy, but there's definitely been some frustrations. And with this full moon, I think you are examining your significant relationships. Romantic, business kind specifically. Could be friendships, but most likely those are like one-on-one, close relationships. So either you find that the relationship is no longer satisfying you and there might be a breakage of a connection. Maybe you decide that this is just a friendship and you don't see it as a romantic relationship. Or maybe things are going well and you're ready to call this an official relationship. Maybe you're ready to sign some kind of literal contract if it's a business partnership, or contract in blood. But maybe you're ready to make some kind of commitment, right? Like an agreement with your partner that you're moving in together, or you are boyfriend and girlfriend, like you're making your relationship official, or you're getting engaged. There can definitely be changes in relationships, most likely if you're already in one. But if you're single, maybe your like friends with benefits situation transpires and turns into something else, or you just change your approach to partnerships. Maybe all of this Mercury retrograde extravaganza made you more secure in yourself, and you're willing to speak about your truth and speak about your wants without sugarcoating it or without trying really hard to please other people. You're definitely focusing on finding balance in your relationships and relationships in like with your needs and your relationships with other people. If you are a Scorpio rising, this full moon is happening in your 6th house. So 6th house quite literally deals with health and things that befall us. So look at the last 6 months. If you've been really busy, if you've been pushing yourself too hard professionally, if you've been dealing with a health issue or neglecting your health, you might definitely experience changes there. So, there might be a crisis because it's kind of a little bit dramatic full moon. So maybe just be careful, like don't lift heavy weights that day, try to take it easy, maybe have a break of a couple of days if you can, it's the middle of the week, at least go to bed early. But there might be some kind of like health issue or even a work crisis that calls you to bring more attention to your health. So possibly, some kind of trigger that brings your attention to taking better care of yourself. If there was any confusion surrounding work too, if you've been unsure where you stand, your salary, when are you getting the promotion, there might be more clarity coming to that part of your life. Completing a work project, resolving an issue with a colleague or a boss could come there too. And if you've had enough of your job, if you've been feeling dissatisfied, it can also lead to changing careers or like starting a new job. If you are a Sagittarius rising, this full moon is happening in your 5th house. So look at the last 6 months, right? Like end of March up until now, the end of October. Have you been, what have your romantic relationship been like? What has your joie de vivre been like joy in life, right? Like have you been overindulging? Maybe you've been eating sugar every day, or maybe you've been gambling, or maybe you've been dating around. Of course, not everyone, but sometimes maybe there's been some kind of like flamboyancy when it comes to your joy and like maybe doing too much of it. And there might be a feeling of like you pursue a lot of different things, but you're not really focusing on anything specific. So you might realize that like you've been wasting your efforts, and maybe now is the time to commit to some kind of creative project or commit to a serious relationship. Or it might be the time to release some of that. Maybe it's time to release some of the habits that deal with spending a lot and partying all the time. It might be kind of how can you be more constructive when it comes to that part of your life. Changes to relationships, changes to creative projects, completing a creative project, changes in the life of your children are possible too. Getting pregnant is a possibility, having a child, because fifth house, it's a culmination of the children matter. So having a baby or getting pregnant is very much a culmination of that. So watch out for those matters, and definitely try to think about ways you can have fun while also keeping in mind the needs of your body and the needs of your friendships. If you are a Capricorn rising, this full moon is happening in your fourth house. So full moon in the fourth house, for some of you, I have a client I know, she just bought a house recently, an apartment. So for some of you, it might be a culmination of that. If you've been looking for a place for a while, maybe you bought a place and now you're moving. Maybe you've been doing some kind of renovation, redesigning project in your home. Maybe you're just buying new pillows. I'm very much on the topic of new pillows right now. But maybe you're like investing into something in the home. Maybe you have been saving and now you're willing to make a big purchase. There might be, some kind of like conflict in the home. Maybe you've been facing any possible like control issues because the full moon is squaring Pluto in your first house. Like how intense you are. What are you not talking about? Like where are you trying to hold on too tightly to the outcome? There might be some kind of like crises or a conflict at home that results into you rethinking topics of power struggles in the family. Changes in the family are possible. If you're living with your parents, maybe you're moving out. If you're living alone, maybe your parent is moving in. There's possibilities of like, new family members appearing or old family members coming back to live in your life. And I think topics of needs, because fourth house deals with safety and security and your metaphorical family. Like what makes you feel safe? Has that changed in the last 6 months? How can you be more proactive about feeling safe? What can you do? How can you make your home more comfortable, more cozy, more reflective of who you are inside? Think about those things. If you are an Aquarius rising, this full moon is happening in your third house. And third house is our siblings, our neighbors, neighborhood, immediate environment, communication, skills, anything we do with our hands, like any kind of learned knowledge that is not so much about like knowing a lot in your head, but just like being able to use your hands. So since this is a house of communication, there might be even more opportunities for you to get into fights with people, perhaps ideological fights. Perhaps they believe they are conservative and you're liberal and you're getting in a fight about something political. So try to keep it together, like, say less, take a few breaths, don't engage, don't get into fights. If you've been struggling with a sibling or a neighbor, if there have been some kind of misunderstandings, miscommunications, now might be a good time to have an honest conversation, being diplomatic, not pointing fingers and blaming them for something. So that situation can come to completion. If you have been taking a class, if there's been any writing project, any blog, or any technical project you've been working on, or even if you've been simply making a sweater, knitting a sweater, maybe that is coming to completion. Watch out for your technology. There might be a piece of technology that's going to break down. Maybe your car needs to be taken for repairs. It's everything in your immediate environment. And that's why relationships, like how your siblings, maybe your sibling has a child and now you're becoming an aunt or an uncle. So definitely possibilities there. And I would also just think about your immediate environment from that perspective of what kind of things that you surround yourself with are constructive. Like, is your desk full of papers and are they just taking away from your creative flow? Maybe you can streamline that somehow. And now, if you are a Pisces rising, this full moon is happening in your house of money. So your focus will be on finances, and there's a few possibilities. Maybe you've been saving for something and you have saved enough and now you're ready to make a big purchase. Maybe you realize that your spending hasn't been so thoughtful and now you really need to make a plan, start a saving account, like organize your finances in a proper way. Might be a great opportunity to talk to a financial advisor, to open a bank account, to pay off any debts, and of course invest into something if you are thinking about it. Second house also deals with your values and what makes you feel valuable, so you might be questioning that, and maybe even questioning, like, do your possessions satisfy you? Does your job make you happy, or is it something you have fallen into when you were younger and it was only supposed to be 6 months kind of gig and you've been there for 10 years? So think about those things, think about what makes you valuable, and come up with a plan to implement tangible steps towards your dreams. This is all I have. Have a safe full moon, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.